Welcome to Analyst Talk with Jason Elder. It's like coffee with an analyst, or it could be whiskey with an analyst reading a spreadsheet, linking crime events, identifying a series, and getting the latest scoop on association news and training. So please don't beat that analyst and join us as we define the law enforcement analysis profession one episode at a time.
How we doing, analysts? Jason Elder here with another LEA podcast deep dive. Did you know with Mike Winslow? Mike, how we doing?
Great, man. How are you?
I am doing well. Fall in Florida. It's, getting a little Florida chilly, but so it's good. How about Arizona?
What is Florida chilly, by the way? Like, give me that, like, degrees wise. I know you guys still have the humidity, but
yeah, so it's getting like 80s during the day, and it'll get down into the 50s at night.
Okay.
So it's very comfortable. Evening walks with the wife and dog is very nice.
Yep, doing a lot of those, but Britt and Parker, we're getting out. We're kind of right about the same right now. The probably low 80s to mid 80s, and then like 50s, 60s at night. It's turning that corner where it's like paradise here, and then it's going to be awesome all the way through probably like April-ish is when it starts to get kind of hot again. Very rare. It's only happened 2 times in my lifetime that we've had snow down in the valley. Obviously, I grew up with it in Colorado, but Arizona, unless you're up way north, that's not a thing. So
yeah.
Florida didn't get that either. So
everybody in the north hates you when you said it's going to be paradise till April, because
exactly. That's why we have snowbirds. That's why we call them that, because they flee the snow and come to the greatness that is the Valley of the Sun.
Yeah. I grew up in Pennsylvania, which is like, I don't know, it sets some kind of record for cloudiest days every year, and so it's like people probably won't see the sun till April.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know that. I think we, on average, we have like 350 days of sunshine or something. Like, even the days that it's cloudy, it's not for long. I don't know how I'd function without the sun.
No, it does get depressing. Plus, we're changing times. The time change is coming up, and then
see, that's great about Arizona too. We don't even play that game.
That's true. That's true. So yeah, it's in Pennsylvania. Not only is it cloudy and it's cold, rainy, snowy, it also gets dark at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I will say it does still impact us though, and I only know that it's a thing because it changes the kickoff times for football. They change, because we actually do change time zones, but we don't ever actually change time. So it's kind of a weird dynamic, because that's why, like, most times when people know if you're checking like your time zones, Arizona has its own, and it's just because we're always UTC -7, which is great for the phone record side. I don't ever have to worry about that unless they cross over into a different state. So
yeah, I think we're ready to retire. We're get old and talk about the weather.
Yeah, right.
All right, what are we talking about today?
So the topic today we kind of wanted to get into was hidden data. Mm-hmm. And by hidden data, what I mean by that is not so much we go through data all the time as analysts, right? All these different types. And by hidden, I'm talking about the stuff that it's right there. It's in those systems that you're searching, and you might not be fully utilizing some of that data to really help when it comes to some of these investigations. So the first example that we talk about would be your CAD data, right? So whenever someone calls in to the police, all of that data is getting recorded, dates and times, locations, phone numbers, names that they're giving. All of that data is getting stored, hopefully in your records management system somewhere where you can query it. Especially being able to assign or get numbers tied to people. I use our CAD data all the time to see, especially if they're local to my city, I can see, hey, if they ever called 911, where the cops called to their house. It's another way to also link addresses, right? If they call and say, someone broke into my home, and they give this address, and it was just a week ago, and I'm trying to verify that that's their address, it's a pretty great way, because I just put them there a week prior. So tons of different things that you can find in that CAD data. Another system would be, we call them FIs, or field information cards. Sometimes people call them field contacts or something to that nature. Basically, whatever you call it, it's a documentation that is just getting put into the system. Officer on the road contacts somebody. They're not committing a crime, but let's say they're out in an area late at night that's been having a bunch of burglaries. They didn't see them do anything, but they have a backpack on, dressed in all black, and don't have a great story as to why they're there. Can't really charge anybody for that. but we can at least document the contact. I can tell you back when I was doing a lot more of our property crimes, I utilized those all the time to help us figure out who some of the prominent burglars and stuff were in the area. Because if there's proactive patrols and things like that going on, that's a huge gold mine. And I think a lot of people kind of get wrapped up too much in looking at just the reports and reading through reports and what's in those, that they forget about kind of those two really big fields that still exist within police data.
With the hidden data, though, this is something that isn't innately already being given to an analyst. I know that vendors are going to supply certain basic data that every client of theirs departments ask them for. But this is data that's being captured, but maybe unless you ask for it specifically, isn't going to show up in the analyst database. And this is something you really got to go dig for, ask for to examine it.
Absolutely. And just to kind of bolt off of that too, getting with, say, your dispatchers or supervisor over there to see what their process looks like of how they're entering the data and what it looks like. They could be on a totally different system. Like for us in Scottsdale, our records management system and our CAD are two separate vendors.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they play nice with each other and they speak each other's language, so to speak, right? And will import and export various amounts of data. But I'm sure there's data that's on the CAD side that isn't getting captured when it gets over to the records management system. So finding out if there's other fields like different types of locations or any other types of numbers or call notes, stuff that might not be getting captured in the report. If I'm just querying my general records management system, I could be missing that data that's in there.
Yeah, I remember Albert Mesa when he was on the show, and he's dispatcher turned analyst, that he knew, he's like, wait a minute, I know that timestamp is there. It's not coming over. And he actually went over to the 911 center and said, okay, where is this? We got to track this. It was important for the case that he was working on. So I do know this is where it's beneficial either to have that 911 dispatcher contact, or if you do have a Albert Mesa in your shop that wants somebody that was a former 911 dispatcher that's going to be able to get a hold of some of this data, or at least know what to ask for. Because I think that's kind of half the challenge is going to be asking the right question, either of the vendor or your IT staff to go look for it. In your system with your RMS CAD, do you have a data dictionary that you can search?
That's a great question. We've kind of bounced back and forth between when we switched over to a new one and then kind of went back with the old one. I'm sure there's still something that exists that I should probably double check and see that is out there. But kind of like you said, utilizing those types of resources. I'm also very lucky. You mentioned Albert, but my wife was also a former dispatcher. So now it was for a different agency, but she still knew those whole back roads and things of that nature of how that data goes. So even being able to, pick her brain on some of this stuff too, but finding someone over there and just being like, hey, here's what I want to get. And here's what I'm looking to do with it. Does that already exist, or do we need to create something? And like you said, getting some type of reference of, most of these places have some type of a key or data dictionary, like you said, that will explain a lot easier as far as like, this is what this field means and this is what this is and things of that nature.
Yeah. Your wife, Brittany Winslow, I think she actually told a similar story of what I was just describing of Albert. So yeah, so there's definitely the advantage of being a former dispatch and knowing what questions to answer. I know at my shop we do have a data dictionary for our record system, and there are times where I see it in the data dictionary, but I'm not seeing it in my database. I have to go request it to IT to get it populated in the database because they don't actually bring everything over. So it's captured in the records management system, but it's not being brought over to the database. So that's another key thing when you're looking at this stuff, is there may be data that analysts don't have access to, and you never know when it's going to be important to your case.
Right. Or just simply if you're on the side of doing the type of analysis where you're calculating like a response times, making sure that even though that arrival field says arrival and it has a time, what's arrival mean, right? How does that get calculated? Does that get calculated when they queue up and say, hey, I've arrived? Is it geolocated, where their patrol car gets within a certain amount of gets to the address and it says, okay, they've arrived now, different things like that. And then same thing with when it's cleared. If we're trying to see how long are they staying on these calls, well, how are we clearing those calls? What is it that goes into that process? So just anything having to do with data, getting to the people that delve in it all the time and asking some of those questions, so then you better understand it. Once you've been doing this for a while, I always kind of joke with it. Like, I feel like as an analyst, you can analyze pretty much any data once you kind of get in and get used to it. But you need to know what the data is and how it works. But once you get in, then all the same stuff applies. The data is data. So you just need to know what those ins and outs are.
With the field interview, I think we called them fur cards. The department I was at, fur cards, field interview report cards. What was some hidden data that you found in that data?
So same kind of thing, in terms of if I'm researching into a suspect or a subject, finding other identifiers in terms of phone numbers. I mean, if I don't know, they give an email in that situation, but you could have something like that. Even the narrative itself, in terms of the circumstances of the contact. If I'm looking over that stuff and only relying on reports, there could be other potential. Sometimes crimes. I can tell you, I've read plenty of those field info cards and went, okay, there's a crime that occurred here, and they didn't actually do a report for that. And so you might find other linkage of other cases by going through and making sure that you're reading those types of reports too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, if you had a major crime on a particular street, you might be able to identify some potential witnesses that were part of a car stop or a field interview, that are only like a block or two away.
Exactly.
So yeah, you're gonna never know that. I was thinking, and depending on the data entry technique for the officer into those, back in the day, everything was written by hand, so you really didn't capture date timestamps or GPS coordinates or anything like that. But now they got gadgets and gizmos, tablets and cell phones and all that other stuff capturing this information. So all of that should have GPS coordinates, should have timestamp information as the officer is filling out the fur card.
Yeah, exactly. So you just jumping in and reviewing all that stuff, you might see people get mentioned in those as well, that they don't then list that person in the name record. So if you were to search that person's name in your records, it's not going to come up, right? But they get named in that report, and you're only going to see that by going through and actually seeing that narrative.
What other things have you found in terms of might have some hidden data?
So the biggest one nowadays, that's like my new favorite, and I say new because it's not new, it's been around for a long time, is body cameras. The body worn camera footage is an absolute, I said gold mine before, but we'll call it the diamond mine or anything above that, because it is so rich and heavy in information. And it's kind of funny watching it evolve over the course of my career, right? Because when I first started, not to date myself too much now, but it's coming that way. We didn't have body cams, right? That wasn't a thing. And in fact, our department was one of the first ones that jumped on, because Axon is housed in Scottsdale. Their headquarters is here, and they weren't even called Axon then; they were called Taser. And they were getting into that body cam field, and we kind of tested it out. And now even an agency with only 2 officers have body cams. It's become kind of the standard and needs to be there. And I will say the one thing that it has kind of degraded or brought down is the quality of report writing. I think there's a big reliance on that footage. And so there's a lot of things that get more kind of summarized in a report that used to be a lot more detail oriented. To me, if I'm working on a case and I'm looking into a particular individual, I'm going to go in, and the first thing I'm doing when I'm starting my first process is I'm going and watching that footage and seeing what kind of stuff I can glean from it. And then as I'm doing the research, being able to see what other people are involved, right? So again, if I'm trying to locate a suspect, we just went out to that house a week before. Well, a couple things we're going to get there. One, we can put them at or in that address, potentially stating, yes, I live here. I've lived here for the past X amount of years. You could get easy things in terms of, from an officer safety standpoint, them, if they walk in the house, now you have a whole view of the inside of the house and what it looks like in its current state. That could be super helpful, as opposed to looking at say just a satellite image, or they drove by and took camera of it. So, when they walk in and there's a huge like samurai sword on the wall that's right there by the door. And you're like, and I use that example because we've had that. That might be a good thing to put in your workup, right? When you're saying, hey, just so you know, there's a huge sword that's off to the side of this door when he's going to answer it. Different things like that. So like hidden data in that regard, that's not actual like data, right? It's not your traditional data where it is something tangible where you can query and use it. It's more observational.
With the body cam footage, the recording, obviously you're able to review the video. You mentioned searchable. Does your system or what you've worked with deliver the transcription of what it is? Because obviously the speech to text technology in combination with the body cam technology has grown and developed immensely over our time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point, you were correct in that it is auto transcribing now.
Yeah.
Where you can go into it and see the whole conversation. You could query out. So it does actually make that data searchable in a different way, where you could search for keywords and it's going to pop up in that conversation of that specific part, or you can actually click on the word and it'll jump you to that part of the conversation. So the technology is crazy in terms of that side of the house, and that's a great point. I will say something else that just kind of hit when I've talked about this before in viewing and getting access to that data is getting access to that data. We even had some hurdles initially to get access to view that footage. And there were, some people that thought that as the analysts that we didn't need to view that data, that it wasn't going to help at all. And I had a detective that was very much the opposite opinion of that and was able to get us some access in a particular case. And I was able to actually go through that and realize that one of the guys was misidentifying himself, because as I went through it, I was like, hey, he's saying that's his name, but that's not who that is. And nobody knew that until I saw that going through the data. And then that kind of helped to give a good springboard of like, hey, this is why it's important to have the people that are deep diving into this data and these people to be able to review this stuff, because we're going to find things or see stuff that happens in it that maybe your case detective doesn't even know.
So when you said he was misidentify himself, you're talking about the suspect or the civilian that's on the camera, right?
Yeah, the suspect in this case was he was using his brother's name and date of birth, and it was very close. They were close in age, and so but they weren't able to verify that at the time. And but once I was looking into this group, I was like, hang on, that's the guy's brother, that's not him. And so that helped with that later on.
Yeah, or where my head was going, I thought the officer misidentified himself. I was like, well, no wonder they don't want you looking at that footage.
No, nothing like that. And the other thing too is if people are getting pushback on that, one of the things to that point, this stuff is all logged and there's systems in place. If I go in today and go in and review footage, it says I looked at it. You can audit that and it can show that, right? So I know, just like any other parts of data, like there's certain things in making sure that you're staying within policy of, am I able to view this? Am I allowed to view this? I know even some of the other ones, depending on what you use, they can lock down certain footage and only make it available to supervisors or specific people. So there's safeguards in place. It's not like this free for all. Once I get in, I'm like, oh man, I'm going to go look at all this crazy stuff. Like, I don't have time to do that, man. I got to do all these other things. I can't just go watch every contact that we have.
Yeah, it's a lot. And your system, how long do they keep that footage? What's the time limit on that?
So the quick and like pull it up now and view it is usually a year. For most cases. But then what happens is it doesn't ever go away. It gets archived after that. So then if you pull up something from older, you can basically request the archive and it'll pull that out from the archives so you can view it. I don't know. I know there still is a retention schedule. Like we couldn't keep all of that forever, right? Video takes up a ton. Yeah. And I think it depends on the case and the type of case as to why they keep that part of it. But then they can also download that and then store it somewhere else, and then it wouldn't get caught up in that type of retention when it comes to that part. But that's like I'm speaking a little out of my field on that. That's more like a records type thing in terms of, because they also are the ones that are going through later when the news and other things like that request that info. They're doing all the redactions where it blurs out faces and other things like that. That we have people that's one of their main jobs, is to go through and redact, just like they used to do in reports, right? And take out the sensitive data.
Sure.
They got to do the same thing with the video too, and kind of scrub through that and make sure that it's being, the people's information's being protected.
Yeah, man. Geez, you're gonna need the crypto style warehouse to keep all this information.
I know, right?
All right. So you got a good example of some of this hidden data that we've been talking about?
Yeah, actually, I have a great example that literally just happened a week ago for a homicide case that we just had. And as I was doing my research and going through some of the stuff on this case, one of our suspects I found had called in a theft report of his cell phone, and the phone number that he called in on with that was not the phone number that I had already found associated to him. And at the time, we were still looking for some other co-conspirators or suspects, if you will. And so I started to kind of run with that number, and I start looking into it. I find a potential subject related to that number. And so I'm thinking, hey, this could be somebody worth looking at. I pull up the body camera footage from that theft report, and lo and behold, it is two of the other guys actually that we're looking for that are with our suspect, or our suspect in the theft of his phone, that we can see clear as day. And digging in and looking through social media, this individual who I found the number associated to, when I found his social media, he had posted a story the night of our incident that put them all together as well at a location that we didn't know about. So it added in and kind of all grew off of literally digging into that part of data on a phone number from a CAD system that then gave me a positive identification on a couple other people, and then led to a social media account that then gave us some evidence that we ended up using for that evening. So all of those little things ended up into like one kind of big thing of information.
Yeah. And I might be dating myself, because obviously when you look at CAD information, it's going to give you the type of call, it's going to give you the day and time, an address. I don't know if innately in the CAD system for analysts, if you're going to get the phone number that actually made the call. That might be something you have to ask for.
Yeah, well, and it kind of depends. So I know, like for us, we have a software, Discover, through Corona Solutions, that gives us a kind of a search tool for our CAD. And so if I'm looking through and I put in a phone number or I put in a subject, I can see that information. Or on the other end, if I'm searching for a subject through our records management for a report, right, it's going to be tied to an event number in our CAD. I can go run that and actually pull up the call notes and then see what exactly was going on as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So sometimes it's extra extensions. Sometimes you might have to, like you said, get in with someone, in the CAD data world there that they may already have something that exists. I know for that tool, they weren't thinking about using it for investigative, but I use it all the time for that.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good point. I was smiling there and thinking about, like, we always joked around if we could get the CAD data from the big pizza joint in the city.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That has to have so much good information in terms.
Oh man, you get
an
names,
address,
addresses,
name, phone number.
Which, I mean, you could use whatever name you want, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I would think most people I know still use their real name.
Yeah.
So
we always joked around about that. I was like, man, if we could get that data, we probably could identify a lot of folks.
yeah,
Right.
definitely.
Very good. All right. So let's just wrap this up. Like the title of this series is fill in the blank.
Winslow.
Did you know?
Did you know there's more data than you think that's out there?
Very good. All right, Mike, as always, appreciate it. For those listeners, if you have a good example of some hidden data, leave a comment on social media. You can always email me at leapodcasts@gmail.com, and we'll put links to additional information in the show notes and ways to contact both Mike and I. All right,
Perfect.
Mike, thank you so much. Any last words?
No, man, thank you. This has been fun. I always enjoy catching up with you on these, and hopefully the people are getting something out of this. And kind of like you said, give us some feedback if there's any topics you want us to talk about, or if there's anything that you found useful. It's always good to know. I always like to hear that stuff.
All right. Did you know with Mike Winslow? All right. Thank you and take care, bud.
Thanks, man.
Thank you for making it to the end of another episode of Analyst Talk with Jason Elder. You can show your support by sharing this and other episodes found on our website at www.leapodcasts.com. If you have a topic you would like us to cover or have a suggestion for our next guest, please send us an email at leapodcasts@gmail.com. Till next time, analysts, keep talking.